So maybe this is a good question for Heather.
Heather already is out. I can see her face.
I'm running away. I'm leaving now.
And then Michael, to your point, I mean, it could be that the revenue is just this volatile. Like they could have done 10 million in sales in 2018. We don't know. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Acquisitions Anonymous. Mill Snell. We have all four co-hosts today. We talk about a really interesting Axial.com deal. It's a cold refrigerated storage and transportation logistics company based somewhere in the, I think, mid-Atlantic. And we have a few years worth of financials. We talk about food supply chain. We talk about logistics. We talk about the CapEx related to businesses like this. A little bit of a spoiler. It's not very financeable because it's mostly rolling stock. But, you know, businesses like this, it can be really tricky. If you're an outsider, like all four of us we're totally speculating about a bunch of things related to this industry. And one insider could come in and absolutely poke holes in it or could blow the deal wide open in a good way. And so you'll hear us banter and talk about some of the different elements of this. And I think it makes for a good high level overview of this type of deal. But you obviously would have to double click and drill much deeper into the specifics of this industry, the volatility of labor, the volatility of pricing, the volatility of CapEx, and the supply and demand dynamics could be all over the place. So hope you enjoy the episode. Stick around for a quick word from our sponsor.
All right, taking a quick pause here. I have something to tell you. This is Michael. I hate bookkeeping. I hate bookkeeping. I hate doing HR. I hate doing all that kind of stuff. But for bookkeeping, I have found a solution. It is my friend Charlie's business called CloudBookkeeping.com. So that's CloudBookkeeping.com. They are your perfect partner if you want to get bookkeeping out of your hair and focus on making your company, your customers happier and more successful. So please give them a call. Call Charlie, cloudbookkeeping.com. Tell them we sent you. They're a great way if you're a business buyer, if you're a business owner, you're tired of hassling with getting your bookkeeping done. He's got a whole fleet of people that are well-trained and work for him. He's located here in San Antonio, so I can tell you because of that, he's awesome. And they're a great partner for you to potentially call to help with all your bookkeeping needs so you can do the important stuff in your business rather than worry about getting your books right. So give Charlie a call, cloudbookkeeping.com. And now back to the episode.
All right. So, guys, I'm gone for like a week. And you guys managed to get the entire AstroTurf industry mad at us for the AstroTurf thing.
Yeah.
What happened?
Apparently.
I totally missed this. Is this on Twitter or off Twitter? What's happening?
I don't know if it was publicly on Twitter, but somebody was upset that I didn't really love the product personally. I wasn't talking so much about the deal. I was talking about the product, and they didn't like that. I said, I guess, well, I won't even say it again. I'm not going to say it again. I'm not going to say it.
Yeah. Sorry. Don't walk into
I
the
decided
trap.
I like it now. I like it. I like
Wait,
it.
okay. So it was the artificial turf. It's the artificial turf episode. And you live in Southern California, which is basically like living in paradise. So being biased and from Southern California, you're not a fan of artificial turf. You want real grass, sunshine, ocean waves.
Right. Yes.
Right. Like beautiful weather.
Yes.
Rainbows, unicorns.
Yes. Unicorns, all of it. I thought that was what we all had. Come on.
Well, it's interesting because this whole thing precipitated a discussion where there was a discussion internally. It's like, do we need to remind people that this is an entertainment first podcast? Like, this is not a podcast that you should count on for your business analysis. Like, we are here first and foremost to entertain. And if we teach you something along the way, like, great. But anyway, so it precipitated that discussion. So anyway, that's a disclaimer for today's episode. Yeah. We know nothing about these deals before we look at them.
That's and right. If we say we don't like something, it's not an indictment against, your livelihood, AstroTurf people.
It was just my personal thing, sorry. I'll try to like it more.
You're not their target customer. That's all you have to say.
That's right. I'm not the target. There you go. That's what I should have said. Yeah.
I mean, why do you think, or do you think you get a higher percentage of people being very critical and I don't know a better way to say it, mansplaining you in the DMs? Like nobody mansplains me in the DMs.
I don't get that many. So I will say it's not like there's numbers, but I do think that as a woman, sometimes the approach is a little more aggressive than they might approach a man. Yeah. They do definitely talk down a little more and, kind of like put you right in your place. So, yeah, there's a little bit of that, but I don't get a lot of negative. I really mostly get positive, so I'm happy about that.
That's good. +1 for good people.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it would be a little bit like somebody saying, I don't have a dog and I don't like Bill's dog products. And it's like, okay, well, you're never going to buy one. It's okay.
Try them. They taste terrible. Absolutely vile. Can't believe you sell this stuff.
It's so funny.
Oh man. Well, so I guess it's an invitation for the listeners. If you do want to mansplain somebody, do it to Mills.
Yeah,
he's the one.
Bring it on. I love it.
Yeah.
That's what I get.
He's
all
the
day,
one that
every
needs
day.
it. I'll just delete your crap. Oh man. All right. Well, hey Bill, welcome.
Hello. I'm glad I got in just in time for you guys to say my dog treats taste like crap.
I put it on pizza. It didn't help.
Did not work at all. Very upset.
All right.
One
I
star.
brought a deal that is something unlike anything we've done before. And I think it's also going to be super interesting. So that's why I think it's perfect for us. So it's off of Axial. So I was browsing through there, and it is a cold chain transportation and warehouse company. And the summary is it's a 25-year-old established asset-based refrigeration transportation company with a hybrid fleet of owner-operators and company drivers. The company specializes in delivering frozen and temperature-controlled freight. The client base consists of over 75 direct client accounts with an average of 13 years of service relationship. The company also owns and operates a state-of-the-art cold storage facility. So when I first started in our fireworks business, 20 something years ago, we had a bunch of trailers that we had bought, and the old timers used to refer to them as reefers because they were refrigerated.
I'm so glad you brought this up. That's the one thing I know about cold storage is reefer trailers.
Yeah. So I don't know if they're still called reefers, but
they are.
Like all the greatest generation people I work with are like, go out there to reefer trailer number 18 and see if you can find XYZ. It's like, okay. So
why are they called reefers?
Refrigerator.
Refrigerate. Okay.
Yeah, they have the refrigerator units on the front. Yeah.
This reminds me of something from Gen X. We used to put in the files a little short note about following up, and we would say "F you" as such a certain date. And my daughter caught me writing that out on a deal because I'm still stuck. I don't say it, but I'm still stuck in that habit of jotting that note down. And she's like, "F you, Mom."
Yeah.
Wow.
F you, Tom. No, follow up with Tom. Thanks. Got it.
Exactly. Reefer, F you, follow up on the reefer. Okay.
All right. So reefer does not refer to any sort of marijuana transportation or any of that kind of stuff
that we know of.
So, I mean, an interesting data point for you. We used to ship a lot of fireworks back in the day on refrigerated trucks because we had a store out in Nevada. So basically there's all these freight lines that were refrigerated trucks, and they would basically bring all the produce from California to Texas, but then they would go back and they would be empty. So we hooked up with them.
Backhaul your fireworks?
Backhaul fireworks, yeah. Wow. So they brought us strawberries to Texas and we sent them fireworks to Nevada. It was perfect. Okay. All right. So investment thesis, strong demand fundamentals. It's a cold chain storage and transportation subsectors are experiencing robust demand with limited supply side opportunities. It has sustainable cash flows, and the company generates reliable cash flows through exceptional service and long-term customer relationships in a high barrier to entry industry. Growth and synergy opportunities. Significant untapped growth and value creation opportunities exist that can provide immediate cost and revenue synergies for cold chain logistics portfolios. They have a facility that is a 43,000 square foot warehouse, 38-foot clear height, 6 dock doors, and 5,650 variable height pallet positions, premium refrigeration system in the state-of-the-art facility. It's under 5 years old. Certifications, CFIA and HACCP. I don't know what those are. The equipment they own is 7 straight trucks, 2 tandem and 2 reefers, 2 tractors and 12 trailers that are reefers. Owner-operator fleet is 5 tractors, 2 tandem, and 9 5-ton trucks, and cold storage equipment supports the various warehouse activities. Financials, 2019, they did approximately $6 million in revenue and $1.2 million in EBITDA. 2020, they did $7.6 million in revenue and $1.7 million in EBITDA. So then 2021, they did $7.5 million in revenue and $2.5 million in EBITDA. And we don't have 2022 or 2023. So the financials here are 3 years old, which is interesting. And it's located in the U.S. Middle Atlantic. And the transaction they're looking for is a sale or change of control. So what do you guys think about this cold chain transportation and warehouse company?
So am I right in seeing that their revenue from kind of T-2 years to T-1 year went from basically flat, 7.5 million, but their EBITDA went from 1.7 to 2.5, a 22% margin to a 33% margin on the same revenue, which is pretty interesting. I wonder if trucking is a little bit like sea and ocean freight, where the fixed costs are kind of the same, and then the rates move with the market. And, sea and ocean freight, people crushed it during COVID because prices were insane. I wonder if there are kind of some market dynamics, if you think about 2021 and 2020, that maybe 2021 was just a much stronger year for demand. That was when freight rates were going nuts also.
I do know one thing. This is a trucking business, and I have a buddy that owns a trucking business, and you know what he can't get? A business loan. No bankers want to loan money to these companies, as far as he was telling me. So maybe this is a good question for Heather.
Heather already is out. I can see her face.
I'm running away. I'm leaving now.
Heather, why don't banks, Main Street banks, want to give unsecured loans to a cyclical, capex heavy, slow to get paid, quickly can grow and quickly can shrink with high fixed cost business like trucking? I mean, why wouldn't they want to do that?
I don't know. I mean, it is a mystery to me too. But yeah, it's a very cyclical market, and the cycles are fast, and they're not even really that predictable, I don't think, especially anymore. I think after COVID, I think the predictability of the cycles in this market got a lot tougher because other things came into play, like labor shortages. There was a lot going on at the same time that really made this a volatile industry to be in. And this is a company that owns their own trucks. It's not a brokerage. They've got more risk in it because of the equipment. And I agree totally with Bill. That's probably why we see not only the top line growth a little bit, but also the margin growth. It was COVID. And it would be really interesting to know what 22, 23, and current looks like now, because I'm sure, I would guess it's not as good. The margins are probably down, but these are tough businesses to get financing on. Some people think wrongly that they'll be easier because they've got fixed assets, but this is rolling stock. So what a lender looks at is, this is assets that depreciate pretty quickly, and also a lender has to think through what's going to be left if I have a loan in default. In default, I have a failing company, and it's probably been failing for a while. By the time the bank gets their hands on anything, the rolling stock rolls away, and it's not
it gets sold before the bankruptcy.
Yeah, pretty much. So there's a lot of good reasons.
Let me throw a curveball on this one, though. So the facility, we don't know if they own it or not, but let's just assume that they do, because they're talking about it's state of the art and their HVAC, is under 5 years old. If you own the warehouse, if you own the cold storage here, I think it gives you a huge leg up, because you could somewhat theoretically control who comes to pick stuff up from you. I've talked about my brother's moving business a lot, but he does a lot of storage and receiving. But he owns a moving business. He just happened to get a handful of warehouses, and then people ship him boxes. And he's like, guess what? I'm bringing them to you when you're ready. You can't send somebody else to come and get them. And so I wonder if they're able to protect some of their market share in, this U.S. mid-Atlantic market by, at least having cold storage is incredibly expensive to build. Like, the replacement cost on this is probably many multiple times, more than what it's worth on their balance sheet.
I have a friend who actually, they build, when you want to build a cold storage facility or any of those like giant walk-ins or any of that kind of stuff, like they are contractors that build and maintain those systems. It's pretty fascinating.
Very specific. The roofs are they're much more complicated than a normal roof, and the entire building envelope is very, very onerous.
So this may be a dumb question about this deal. Are these people it's refrigerated trailers? Are they only hauling food, or are there other things that are refrigerated when they're transported?
I have worked with a client that transported like medical items that had to be refrigerated, but I think they use very specialized carriers because they're usually a bit smaller, and the temperature control has to be a little bit more precise. So to my basic knowledge of this is that this is probably mostly food, because the medical type stuff, the other stuff that needs to be refrigerated, it's got to be temperature controlled a little more specifically.
Were those body parts, Heather? Did you look at a body
they
part
are,
transportation
they are
business?
in part. Yes, there are body parts, tissue, samples.
Yeah.
Yep, all that fun stuff. Blood.
Mm-hmm.
It's
just a matter of time until we do an organ brokerage as part of this whole thing.
Golly.
Yeah. We're running.
We did. So in our business, we did have a brand that did wax-based products, think like chapsticks, things like that would melt. And occasionally in extreme summer heat, we would use refrigerated storage or not to store it, but to truck it. Because when you ship something, if it is in transit, it can get left on the dock from Friday through Monday until it gets picked up again, just baking in these warehouses that are not climate controlled. You can ruin all kinds of things, supplements, creams, wax-based stuff, whatever it may be, especially in the summer.
Mm-hmm. So back to this deal, like it's going to be tough to get it financed. Banks and folks don't want to do this stuff. One thing they don't really talk about is who the customer base is. Because I think there's a number of these companies that contract out and they're on big contracts with grocery chains or different folks like that. And they've got relatively consistent recurring revenue there. Though there is a danger there, which a lot of these big grocery chains and retailers, a lot of them run their own trucks. So it's just a matter of time until they decide, hey, like once demand goes down, they run their own trucks first and they cut you out. But that's where something I would be curious. And maybe that's where a lot of whether this is worth something or nothing really comes down to, like, who are your customers? Like, how likely is the consistency going to be there going forward? Because if, for example, if there's a corporate guaranteed, contract here with two different high-end grocery stores that are medical supply places that I know are not going to go anywhere for the next 5 years, that's a very different business than, I'm hoping that this month-to-month contract that I have with 3 different groups doesn't get terminated when the economy goes south.
Yeah, I'm interested about their facility because I get the sense, if it's like new state of the art, I get the sense they probably built it later. So they probably built it very on purpose to deliver margin to their trucking business. I wonder if the facility came online maybe during COVID and that attributes the margin bump. Because you have this stuff, you can it's refrigerated, right? You can store it in the truck like overnight while the truck is not driving, but that's very expensive because your truck's not driving. If you want, you can't just offload it into any warehouse because the warehouse has to be climate controlled as well. So I imagine that you end up paying for overnight cold storage or a couple day cold storage as you match loads, right? If you need to transload cargo and it needs to wait a couple days, you can suddenly do that if you have your own cold storage warehouse, but it's not on the table. You either got to drive straight through or the truck's got to sit and burn gas all night to stay refrigerated. So I wonder if they added this as more of kind of a hub and spoke cold chain distribution model. Where they're cross-docking stuff, or how much of their revenue actually comes from the strategic asset that is the facility versus just the trucking.
So one thing that is kind of interesting, that CFIA is the Canadian Food Inspection Authority, and then the HACCP is Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Point Certification, that is a U.S. standard, and it says it instantly demonstrates to customers your commitment to producing or trading in safe food. So I do think it's on the food side and less on the medical side. But you think about it, there is some control that has to be kind of end to end with this. It's not like, you can just say, oh yeah, the ice cream, it melted on the way here, but then we refroze it.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, ice cream does sound good.
Yeah,
you lost me. Forget this business. I was thinking about going to get some ice cream later. It's like 140 degrees at the same time.
It's hot in Texas.
There's another thing I know about cold storage facilities, which is really interesting. A ton of them get built in opportunity zones because they are, it doesn't really matter where it is, right? And they're really expensive to build, and you can also accelerated depreciate them. So if you are looking for a tax shield, building a really expensive capital asset that can be accelerated depreciated in a opportunity zone gives you this kind of triple tax advantage where you get to expense the entire cost of building up front, and then you don't have to deal with the recapture because when you sell an opportunity zone asset after 10 years, it's capital gains tax free.
Yeah.
So for a while, there were these opportunity zone funds running around raising money from people just to build cold storage and other kind of expensive storage type stuff, specialized storage in opportunity zones, depreciate a ton of it, and say you basically get to expense the whole purchase price of the building right away, wait 10 years and no recapture because of OZ. So I wonder, considering this is state of the art, recently built, I would bet money this is in an opportunity zone.
Makes a lot more sense than the hotels that they were building in opportunity zone fund areas where it's like, nobody wants to go there. Like the hotel is going to go belly up right away.
But I don't care if my ice cream is stored there overnight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so maybe another question I have about this deal, how should I look into the fact that there's only financials through 3 years ago? Like, it's interesting that the teaser's not relatively new.
And that it's 25 years old. Like this business has been around for quite some time. Arguably, Bill, to your point, like before the state-of-the-art facility.
Yeah, I think they built the facility as kind of a margin accretion play and tax shield. I mean, like, what a triple whammy, right? Mm-hmm. Drop additional margin to the bottom line in your business, shelter a ton of current income from taxes today, and deal with no recapture in the future through an opportunity zone. Like, brilliant play if that's what happened.
And then, Michael, to your point, I mean, it could be that the revenue is just this volatile. Like, they could have done $10 million in sales in 2018. We don't know at this point.
They show us the EBITDA number. I'm interested in what your NOI and free cash flow numbers are.
Yeah, the CapEx.
A lot of these things are, as Bill talks about, amazing tax shields. Why are they tax shields? Because your CapEx is like ridiculously high. You're generating lots of book profits, but no cash profits.
But probably just to build, right? I mean, there's a huge outlay to build it. Is the maintenance super high on these things?
On the trucks, for sure.
The trucks,
on the trucks,
yeah. The trucks has got to be. I mean, these are, and they're not even like normal trailers. They're trailers with refrigerators attached to them that drive down the highway at 75 miles an hour in all kinds of rain, sleet, and snow.
And I mean, the risk associated, like if we have a trailer go down, no big deal, right? If you have a trailer go down and the refrigeration breaks, then you got spoilage on things that all of a sudden you're having to eat the cost of. Side note, we just sold.
That's insured, right?
I don't know. I don't know if it would be. I mean, you could probably insure some of that risk, but what insurance carrier is going to say, yeah, we'll indemnify you from, I don't know, $250,000 worth of inventory loss that's not on your books? And what would the premiums and the deductible be for something like that?
I've only been adjacent to this market. I've never actually been in the food hauling market. I do know people that do it, but not me. But I have seen cargo get insured like that by the carriers stuff. Now, if there's a claim, getting them to pay you, totally different story. But they at least pretend it's insured.
In our business, we just sold a semi with 1.3 million miles on it. Like, something tells me these, if something breaks in the roofing business, it's like not the end of the world. Like, we could, get another and the downtime isn't catastrophic. But for this, these guys are probably having to really keep up with their maintenance CapEx drastically differently than any other industry.
You're almost at a size here where it makes sense to have a teammate be a full-time mechanic on all these vehicles. You're changing fluids that often, dealing with all that kind of stuff. Changing tires. I bet you could keep a mechanic busy full time with this size of fleet, right? You have 12 trailers, 7 trucks, and then the owner operator fleet is 9 trucks and 7 tractors and trailers. So,
well, speaking of, that's the other thing you have to due diligence here is the quality of the rolling stock.
Yeah.
Does it have 1.3 million miles on it like the trailer Mills just offloaded, or is it relatively fresh and new and it works? Do the refrigerators have a reputation for breaking down every 100 miles or whatever it may be? Just what are you getting here? Because if your tractors aren't and your trailers aren't working, you don't have any revenue. And there's probably those are the only assets of your business. I know, Heather, they don't like to borrow, banks don't like to lend against them, but this is your only hard asset, I would think, right? For collateral at all.
Yeah. Yeah. And usually it takes kind of a specialized lender to replace the fleet. That's the other thing. If a lender wants to be the senior lender on the acquisition in a company like this, they have to usually enter some kind of intercreditor agreement with the other lender, the specialized lender that lends on the fleet, because they're not the same. They're completely different specialties. And so that adds a little wrinkle of complication. That comes up in other industries too. There's a lot of industries that need specialized financing, and to work together with that and the senior lender on an acquisition is tricky.
So what do you guys know? If you go back up the listing, I noticed that it said some of their loads, they have W-2 employees that they run, and some of their loads are owner operators. Mm-hmm. Do you guys, what's kind of the trade-offs here in economics? I mean, obviously an owner operator is somebody who owns his own truck and kind of takes contract loads versus somebody that you employ. I imagine there's economic differences, but also kind of operational and convenience differences there too.
Well, the owner operator would have to be a contractor. So that means they have to bring their own equipment. They have to own their own tractor. They have to maintain it. They have to be able to refuse jobs and accept jobs. They have to potentially be able to take a loss if you want to qualify as a 1099. So that comes there. And obviously I think the trade-off is for you as an owner of this business, right? You don't have all the risk of owning the fleet and maintaining it, and the truck blows up. Well, it's the owner operator's fault. Or their problem, and they could deal with their insurance on it. But at the other end of it, you don't get the dependability and the reliability that you get owning your own stuff. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I don't know if about logistics to know if this mixture is optimal. I don't even know if it's good or bad. That's how little I know about it.
I feel like they would use the owner operators as kind of overflow. Like they'd probably primarily rely on their own fleet, and then as they grow, like they had here, they can't add to the fleet as fast as they could just call up owner operators and kind of see if that growth lasts before they buy more CapEx to sustain that growth. So I think that's how I would use it if I were in this business.
Yeah, margin's probably better on the company-owned loads versus the owner-operator loads, but the owner-operator stuff scales up and down really fast. Right. I bet there are whole marketplaces where you can put out the load to the marketplaces and the owner operators will bid on it. And I'm sure there's probably even a cost calculation to figure out, do I outsource this load, or am I willing to drive it with my guy?
So one of my favorite TikTok channels, by the way, is a guy who's a trucker out of Louisiana. And he's got a very strong Southern Louisiana accent. And he goes on those marketplaces where people post loads that they are brokering out and trying to get hauled and stuff like that. And the whole thing is he takes one phone and he records himself on his other phone. And the phone that he records actually has a cracked screen on it. And it's all greasy, kind of what you'd imagine a trucker having. And all he does is on each little TikTok video, poop on how stupid the posting is. He's like, look at this dumbass posting. They want to pay me 50 cents a mile to drive from Tuscaloosa all the way to Seattle, Washington. I highly recommend it. Like, that's awesome. So yes, there are all these marketplaces, and somebody's turned around and turned it into a media business, Bill. It's just the best TikTok channel ever.
Everything's a media business, especially with TikTok. It is really interesting though, because there are actually people that like high frequency trade freight loads. Yeah. Based on how many miles it is, what the corridor it is, then there are inefficiencies. Like somebody's got to drive home and their truck is empty, or somebody needs something to go right now. And if you can pair those, you can make a decent spread.
Yeah, this reminds me, it'd be great if we had Craig Fuller, Mr. Freight Waves, here on this one. He would have learned us some stuff. But
so how is this business
he won't yell at us for saying stupid stuff about this business.
How is this business different than like Cisco or US Foods? I mean, Cisco's publicly traded $70+ billion in revenue. I think they operate their own distribution facilities.
I'd much rather be in that business. I mean, you have economies of scale in terms of buying and distributing stuff. If you're Cisco or any of these big food distributors, like the same reason Home Depot wins, like you have buying power like crazy. A business like this logistics thing, like it's just pure straight up commodity, like totally subject to the whims of everything. Like you have I can't, other than some of the tax advantage stuff we can maybe talk about, like with the warehouse being in the OZ, like you're subject to straight up commodity price fluctuations. And at some point, no matter how good of an operator you are, this business may just start losing money just because of there's too much supply for the amount of demand.
Well, this business is materially different than Cisco, right? I mean, Cisco is a distributor of food, 100%. And they probably carry the food on their balance sheet, right? Like that's a distributor. And I'll come back to an interesting thing about the way Cisco really influences your life in a minute. But these guys are just transporters, right? This is pure trucking.
Yeah.
So what's interesting about Cisco is, in speaking with friends who run restaurants, if you want to open a restaurant, you call up Cisco or Performance Foods or one of their competitors, and you go, I'm opening a barbecue restaurant. And they go, no problem. Here's your menu. Here's all your signature dishes. Here's all your cocktails. Here's the PDF. Print this out. And this is your menu. This is the actual menu. Yeah. Here's the sign. Here's 10 suggestions for names, like barbecue restaurant in a box. Here, we know that based on a barbecue restaurant, like in your area, you're going to need this many pounds of pork shoulder every week. And they just like roll you out. So like you can open a restaurant, you can go to Cisco. They have all these example menus, like in that they think play different, in different cities, like launch this menu and we carry all the SKUs and here you go, restaurant in a box, but like for everything, sushi, barbecue,
coffee drive-thrus,
whatever it is.
Coffee drive-thrus. They'll give you a recipe.
Really?
They'll make your signs for you. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Okay. Hey, Bill, you and I talked about this, like, full disclosure, all the coffee drive-thrus, whether it's Scooters, Dutch Brothers, the one we sold, the top 5 selling drinks are all the same crap at every single place. Like they're all the exact same thing, same ingredients. You go to Dutch Brothers is exactly the same as what Starbucks sells you. Like it's all the exact same crap. It all comes from Cisco. It's the same flavors, same everything.
It's like frappuccinos and mochas. Is that basically it?
The number one seller is a caramel chocolate frappuccino, like iced frappuccino. Like if you go to any one of those stores, ask for the number one seller. That's what it's got, like 2 pumps of caramel and 2 pumps of chocolate in it, and like 14 scoops of sugar. Like that's in 2 espresso shots. Like they all sell the same crap.
And what's also interesting is Cisco can trend set. So they can go, like some sales manager at Cisco can be like, we are sitting on way too many sweet potato tots right now. And then the sales guys at Cisco, they make up like some recipe that's like super trendy and they push it out to all the restaurants. They're like, hey, screaming deal on sweet potato tots. This is how you should make them, present them this way, put it on your menu as a special of the week. Here's the PDF that you're going to hang in your window. So, special on cinnamon, sweet potato tots, etc.
Here's your social media post. Yeah.
Yes. And these trends start up because Cisco's got to move inventory. I mean, it's wild.
That is nuts. So yeah, you bring up a good point. These folks don't own the inventory; they're just a hauler. But they own a warehouse, or at least they lease a warehouse and will sublease space. In these 5,560 unique pallet locations inside their building. But Cisco is acting as a distributor. So they're taking inventory of the 12-ounce prime rib and then having to move it.
Yes. In a lot of cases, I'm sure that Cisco's business is far more complex at this point because they're huge and, maybe they have all sorts of weird futures contracts on prime rib.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure they hedge.
I'm sure it's really
hedge the heck out of everything.
Yes, but fundamentally, Cisco has a balance sheet. These guys don't.
So I'm just wondering, like, in what cases are you, and I don't know enough about the food supply chain, but in what cases are you procuring something that's not through Cisco and US Foods and you need it through these guys? Is it,
I think,
that it's wholesale versus
local? Well, these guys might not be restaurant and consumer. I mean, this could be grocery. I mean, it could be all kinds of different things. But I think if you're a restaurant, it's specialty, like it's local, or like you want a specific branded thing from Minnesota, your hometown, you want to bring it in, who knows? But like this could be tortillas going to Costco, and it's the same load every time. Like, you don't really know. There's a lot of use case for this outside of restaurant.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right. Well, we lost Everyone's 2 of our co-hosts.
That's the new thumbs down. You just leave.
Yeah, it's just a salute. See you later. And I mean, I do think we covered everything kind of interesting about this deal. Any other thoughts from you?
No, I think it's a tough one. It's also, it wouldn't get financed. Let's say that. And I wish they would have told us more about whether, there were some tax advantages in the teaser that might have been helpful and what the end markets are. But from what I saw, I have to give a thumbs down.
It's kind of an awkward size too, where it's too big for, like friends and family around, but it's probably, even if it was, I don't know, it's hard to tell based on the years, if they had 22 and 23 that were similar to 2021, then you're outpricing probably in some cases the SBA. But if it's this volatile, maybe not. So hard to tell with the information we have.
Yep.
Well, thanks everybody for tuning in to our, hilarious, entertaining episode. We're entertaining ourselves, if nothing else. So we're glad you joined us and you made it to the end. And me and Heather will see you out. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave us a review. And also, like Bill has plugged faithfully, check out our website. You can look for specific industries and tags and really drill down into the type of business that you're thinking about or looking at and do some research that way.
And people are doing it because they email me about the episodes of the company they're looking at. So I know they're doing it. So that's great.
Oh, good. We'll see you next week.